The Flying Eye Radio Network is in the air. Nice, kitty. How you doing? This is Geno Michellini. Welcome to the show. You know, it has dawned on me recently that just about every one of the people in my life that I care about is a friggin' loony. There's not one normal person in the whole group. Except for me, of course.
I'm writing a book on insanity. You should always write about something you know. You know? I'm calling it Fruitcakes I Have Known.
All right, welcome back to LA Radio Sessions. And we have a very special guest in studio tonight. We have the one and only, the legendary Geno Michellini.
That's legend with a J.
No, it's legendary. Now, before we get underway, we got some housekeeping to take care of.
Okay.
Richard, do you want to take it from here?
Sure.
Now,
what is this?
Richard has an apology that he'd like to...
This is, I'm sure to your mind, it's so minor that it really doesn't matter much. But throughout the years of writing my column, I've always prided myself on making sure that I gave everyone a fair shake. And
well, I remember that. You always were good to me, that I recall.
Well, I had one article that I did, and I don't think it was with my column with the Daily Breeze Daily News now. Yeah. I think it was with the LA Radio Guide for, I don't know if you remember that little thing that came out a couple years.
Yeah, very much so.
I was doing a story on Guy Kemp over at KMPC-FM, and there was a line that I wrote, and in my mind it was so minor that I figured it wasn't a big deal. And he told me that you had called into the station. I didn't confirm that, so I wrote in the story that you had.
Oh,
now he remembers.
Remember that.
Now he remembers.
Oh, okay.
And
well, let's put it this way. Yeah, I do remember that moment now, and I'm sorry that you've been feeling all. God, how long has it been?
Like I said,
he's been carrying it with him
10 years.
Yeah. But the thing that's funny is I remember you called me, and you actually called me on it. And instead of actually taking it, saying, "Gosh, maybe I was wrong about this. I should do something about it," I was kind of thinking, "God, what a jerk! He calls me and does that because Guy Kemp wouldn't lie to me." And
yes, he would.
and then it probably hit me. Here I was a younger guy thinking, big deal. And then I realized later, especially with later on in my own experience being accused of something I didn't do, I started to think, I bet that he didn't call, and I was stupid for not doing that. So I've always wanted to apologize to you, and I never did it. So.
God love you. I mean, not that you carried on for 10 years the guilt, but that it bothered you enough to remember that. It was not a big deal at all. I'm so really sorry that you felt that way because you don't owe me an apology for anything.
Because I think I probably caused problems with you and whoever the program director was at the time.
Well, what happened was I think I vented on you when I should have vented on the right person, and it wasn't really you. but you caught it.
I should have confirmed it. That's the thing I should. I should have called you and said, "Did you call?"
We were all wrong. Right. So no problem at all.
I wanted to clear the air.
You feel
and say,
better now?
Oh yeah.
Well, I wasn't even involved, and I feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Let's go have a beer.
Yeah, let's have a beer.
Yeah.
All right, now let's get down to business. Now that you feel better now, Richard?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
You're all right?
Yes.
Okay.
And and it's funny. After all these years, I finally get to meet him in person. You really are. When you say legendary, we were talking when you were outside. I still think of you being on KLOS. It's really bizarre.
Well,
sure.
sometimes I still do too, but the KLOS I think of myself on doesn't exist anymore. That's the problem. Right. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about this legendary disc jockey.
Could we just? Okay. I'm not comfortable with that word.
Well, we're going to talk about your Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, I know. I'm still dealing with that too.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
What first sparked you to love radio? What was the initial spark? Can you remember back that far?
Yeah, I can. Strangely enough, when I was in high school, I'm a military brat, and I was going to high school in Germany at the time in the early '60s, and I had to take courses for electives and stuff, and I signed up for a music appreciation course, and I can't play a thing. It seemed like an easy, throwaway course, get a couple credits, sleep through the class, but I had this really cool teacher, as it turns out, and I do not remember his name, sadly. And he's one of those magical teachers that if anybody is listening to the show has ever had a teacher like this that gets to you, God love you, and God love them for being what they are, because it is something special. And this stupid throwaway course, it started with all the beginning of the history of music, all the way from Gregorian chants, all the way through classical music and the composers in Baroque versus romantic and classical, and then up to jazz. And he had a way of teaching me. He was a younger teacher too. He wasn't much older than me, actually. The thing stuck with me. I mean, to this day, I can recite, Beethoven's symphonies, and I know the difference between Baroque and other classical styles of music and so forth and so on. And I know what I'm listening to when I hear a classical piece and so forth, and all the way up through jazz. He piqued my interest in jazz and so forth. And of course, this was like the Beatles. I was living in Germany. The Beatles hit in '64, but it was actually '62, '63 over there. So we were getting into them, and they were hitting big too. And it was like the music was kind of slowly seeping into my consciousness. And it wasn't until I got into the Air Force I'm jumping ahead, into the Air Force many years later, because I flunked out of college. If you ever saw the movie Animal House, that's a documentary of my time at Penn State. And I flunked out of college, and I went into I got drafted, so I joined the Air Force. And they had this thing back then called Project Transition, that if you were going to get out and you knew what you were going to do and it wasn't the career field you were in, you could do the last 6 months of the Air Force in that new field. And I decided I'm going to go to broadcasting school and learn how to do this. Filed the papers, and they let me go. And I went and I transferred from the computer facility I was working at to AFRTS, the Philippines. And that's how I began. And I still have the tapes. I have the first show I ever did in my life, and to this day, I can't listen to it. I mean, we're talking about that first day, opening the microphone. I mean, this is not like a dream to be a DJ. This is like, should I try? Okay, well, try it. So that first show, I mean, I forgot my name. I played songs at the wrong speed. I introduced the wrong songs. I mean, you name it. It was that, and yet I came off the air that day. I had never known such joy. I had never known anything that, my God, I love this. I got to do this. And it was the first time in my life that I found something that I wanted to do for a job. As in, I'd never known what it was like to look forward to going to work. That was the first. That was a cathartic moment for me. It was like I'd never known that was possible. Everybody I knew worked for a living, and I was one of those ones. I'd make excuses for being late or sneak away for lunch. I got to do my job, whatever the job was. And it's like suddenly, my God, I can get paid to do this. Oh,
yeah.
So that began the trick, and that's where that's where from that point on I never looked back.
So you learned your craft there, though.
Well, no, I didn't learn it.
You didn't learn it there?
No, I learned the very basics. I learned how to work a board, and it was only 6 months, and I learned enough to know I had a lot to learn. But the thing was that old phrase, "ignorance is bliss."
Right.
That was the story.
So after you got out, then,
I didn't know how bad I was, basically.
After that, what happened?
Broadcasting school in Hollywood.
Oh, you went to a broadcasting.
Yeah, I got out of the Air Force, went broadcasting school in Hollywood for a year and so forth, and then I started to trek up. I got a weekend job up at a daytime only station in Thousand Oaks, KGOE, 8:50 a.m. daytime only. And my job was to work weekends, and I would come in after being drunk all night Saturday night, sleeping on the couch in the front office of the station because I didn't dare go home.
Right.
Wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, turn on the transmitter, and play 4 hours of religious tapes, and then go live at noon or whatever, and to do 4 hours, and then the next jock would come in and take it up to sign off and turn off the transmitter. And that was my start. And I still have my first paycheck somewhere. I think it was $13.
So Stockton was the next stop?
Yeah, Stockton.
Then let's jump across. Did you work at any other stations before you got to the Bay Area?
Oh, hell yeah. After Stockton, I made the jump to FM, which is what I always wanted to do.
Sure. Because
getting back to my days in the Air Force, one of the jobs of my show on the air there was not just doing live show, but half the time you'd play shows from the States. And this is like 1972, and FM was just starting to kick in the States. But we were overseas, so we didn't know about that. But we had to play everything. I mean, you'd get, from top 40 to Bobby Troop and World War II jazz to country to there was a show called a guy named Tony Pigg used to do. The hour called The Hour of Love. And, of course, we ran that at midnight during my show. And it was the first time I ever heard like the Allman Brothers and Pink Floyd and things like that. And this guy was doing segues. And he would come on. Up to that point, everything was top 40, and high energy. So, and hey, this is Tony Pigg. It's an hour of love. Can you dig? And then he'd always open every show with Hot Atlanta by the Allman Brothers. And we're like, who is this guy? This is cool. Plus, we're in the Philippines. This is during Vietnam.
Yeah.
Hey, this is cool. I'm going to take this record home with me tonight. And and so that's where I learned about FM, and so I got the chance. I always wanted to do that. I mean, I knew about top 40. That's what I grew up on. But the FM was definitely where my head was aiming. And as I mentioned before, when things just fall into place if you take care of business today. And I was working at KSTN in Stockton, and the two big stations in Sacramento at the time. Then this is like 1975. Was KZAP and KSFM, Earth Radio for Northern California. And as it turns out, the entire staff of KSFM walked because they got a chance to go to a bigger market. They went down to KSJO in San Jose.
The whole staff at once?
The whole staff at once, with the exception of two people.
Wow.
Because a guy named Ken Beck stayed behind because he realized if he did, he'd be the program director. Of course, he's desperate for jocks. And to make the transition from AM to FM, especially in the mid-'70s, that was hard to do.
Sure.
It wasn't done. But he was desperate, and I was close by, and I found out about it. And when I talked to him on the phone, I forget what he said to me. He says, basically, I'm looking for an AM jock that's burned out. Can you do it?
Yeah.
I'm your guy.
Right. So you had to slow the pace down a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah. It took a while.
Well, who was really good at that, who was able to make that transition, and I'm sure you were influenced by him, was B. Mitchell Reed, who was one of the greatest top 40 jocks, and then became one of the greatest progressive
That's
jocks.
how I became Michellini.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell that story.
Well, I have to tell you my real name. I don't know if I can do that.
You don't have. Do you have to tell us?
Just before I went on the air at KSFM, I got the gig.
Okay.
I was about to go on the air, and Ken Beck, the program director, came to me like 15 minutes before my first show, and he said, "By the way, you can't use your real name." And I went, "Why?" He goes, "Because there's another jock across town with a name just like yours, and it's too close. They won't be able to tell the difference. You have a different name." So I've got 15 minutes to come up with the name I'm going to use for the rest of my life. I thought it over and panicked. I mean, it froze. Like, what am I? So some spark of, I don't know, whatever. I grabbed a phone book. I'm serious. I grabbed a phone book. And I just plopped it open. Of course, it fell to the middle. I closed my eyes, went, Mitchell. I went, Mitchell? Gene Mitchell? And then I thought, one of my heroes was B. Mitchell Reed. When I was going to broadcasting school, I used to listen to B. Mitchell Reed.
Sure.
My heroes, Jimmy Rabbit, B. Mitchell Reed, those guys. I mean, those were heroes of mine. Michael Hunter. And it's a sign from God. B. Mitchell Reed, Gene Mitchell. And of course, as soon as I went on the air, I went, "Oh, this is the most boring name in history. You got to be kidding me." And I'm stuck with Gene Mitchell, and I'm just not that kind of person. So I started making fun of myself. It's like one day I'd be Geno Michellini. One day I was Geno Michelowski. One day I was even Geno Michelingus.
Oh.
And
It's like it was a play. I couldn't take the name seriously, and so I was just back and forth. Who I was at today, it didn't matter. It was always some derivation of Gene Mitchell,
right?
Which I thought in my mind, Gene Mayonnaise would have been a better name. But as it turns out, after about 6 or 9 months or so, in the Arbitrons, people started writing down Geno Michellini in the thing called the Mechanicals at the back, where people would keep a diary of the radio ratings book. And nobody ever wrote down Gene Mitchell, but it was kind of the Engelbert Humperdinck syndrome.
Right.
And next thing I know, I was only there for a year in Sacramento before I made the transition to KOME. And I was still Gene Mitchell when I went down to KOME, but it more evolved into Michellini because more and more people were responding to Michellini, and nobody ever commented Gene Mitchell. And finally, my program director, Michael Hunter, who had come up from KMET, taken over at KOME at the Come Spot, he says, "Make up your mind. Who are you going to be?"
Yeah.
I suggest Michellini. So there you go.
Then the Geno.
It's Michellini Geno.
Yeah. So then on to the Come Spot.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like you'd made it to the big time at that point, or
more than you will ever know?
Really?
Terrified and thrilled at the same moment.
Right.
Because I mentioned earlier when I was going to broadcasting school, there were people, because getting out of the service, I loved FM radio. So when I was going to broadcasting school in Hollywood, I'm listening to KMET, and I'm listening to the old KPPC, and I'm listening to those great stations that were happening back then, and KLOS too, but not as much as the other ones. Because you could, like I say, Michael Hunter, Shadow Stevens,
Jimmy Rabbit.
Jimmy Rabbit, one of my all-time heroes, and a Facebook friend now.
Jimmy Rabbit's on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. He's doing what we're doing. He does it.
That's right.
Yeah.
He is.
Oh yeah. And these people and as luck would have it, when I joined KOME, turns out that I was the last official act of the then program director. He was fired about 3 months after hiring me, and the word got out that Michael Hunter was going to be taking over. Well, nobody else really knew who he was up in the Bay Area, but having come from L.A., I did. But not only that, I was blown away because this guy was one of my heroes. And then it dawned on me that I'm just starting out in FM radio. I'd been doing it maybe a little over a year in FM, and I really wasn't very good yet. And I went from excited to be working, one of my heroes is going to be my boss, to oh my God, what if
little intimidating
to be fired by your hero.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know any of this stuff, but it's so basically I'm caught between two, I'm just excited beyond belief and scared to death. And then Michael comes in, and he was, of course, everything I anticipated he would be. I'd never met him before, but it's like he took over. I'd never met a cooler person in my life. And it's like, I'm never going to be this good. I'm never going to be this cool. Oh, Jesus. To get this close and I knew it was coming. And, of course, to prove how cool he was, right off the bat. And see, this is stuff they say it should be in the book, because the trouble is if I tell these stories, people are going to think I'm making this stuff up. This is reality. This really did happen this way. The first thing he did when he took over was threw out the format. Just threw everything out. He says, for the next 2 weeks, do whatever you want to do. Play whatever you want to play. Have a ball. I'm going to be listening. He said, all I ask is that you give me what you think is your best idea of a good rock and roll radio show. And we'll talk in 2 weeks. But during that same period of time, he one by one took us out to dinner and got us drunk and then asked us what we thought about each other. Think about that. Yeah, exactly. All of us had our things to say about each other. We didn't know he was doing that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes. And so it's 2 weeks in, and we're all just like, it's Monday's the day. And it was a Saturday shift, and I was just, I'm walking on eggshells. It's like I'm ready for the hammer to fall. My hero's going to fire me, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to, respond. I may just go kill myself. And the hotline rings, and it's Michael. He says, "I've been driving around listening to you today." And I said, "Yeah, what?" He goes, "I just wanted you to know you play the best goddamn afternoon drive rock and roll I ever heard in my life. You're my hero."
There you go.
You talk about one of those life-changing moments, a cathartic moment. It's in like my hero saying I was his hero.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, this is a moment. I mean, you can't make things like this up. That's why I know I've had a good life. But
that probably changed everything.
It changed. Oh,
yeah.
Boink, boom. And Monday
you started getting cocky then, right?
Well, maybe a little. It's like when you got the backing of God.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, he came in Monday and he fired half the staff.
Wow.
I mean, and what's interesting was the ones he fired were the ones I didn't like.
So he listened to you at dinner,
too.
Well,
no, like I say, Michael, no, he was his own man.
Right.
I mean, it happened to coincide, and I guess logic was, but whatever. I don't, we never got into that. But that was the beginning of probably the 6 greatest years of my rock and roll radio career. I mean, that was my growth period. That's where I learned to take it seriously. That Michael, not only was the coolest guy I ever worked for in my life, and my mentor and my friend, but he was the one that made me realize this was my life. This was not just you're getting away with sex and drugs and rock and roll and getting paid too. This is like you've chosen this for your life. Take it seriously and listen, pay attention. And with Michael, if you didn't grow, if you didn't expand and use your imagination, you were gone. It's as simple as that. And if you talk to anybody like on Facebook or whatever, all my old KOME friends that I'm still in touch with, we all feel the same way. Our lives are better because we knew that guy.
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you right now if I'd never known Michael Hunter. I mean, that man just flat. He was a combination of a great leader and a boss, an authority figure. But he made you have a good time while you were doing it, and you grew. I mean, you just didn't stay status quo. He did not want you to. He was one of those the leaders that, unfortunately, there don't seem to be any of these in radio today. And I'm on a soapbox right now.
Yeah, no, but I was going to bring that up. It's not that today at all.
With Michael, he didn't have a system that he wanted you to conform to, as in plug you into my system. This is what's going to work. This is what we want to do. Michael he took the time to get to know all of you. Like I say, he fired half the staff. And the ones he kept, he knew he could work with. And he brought other people in. He brought in a guy named Dennis Erectus, who you may have heard of, we just lost a couple of months ago.
That's right.
But Michael brought in people that he could work with and mold and water, the garden and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And everybody, what happened was everybody grew, and I learned of things about myself I didn't know I had. I didn't know I had this thing called talent. I never thought about it. He taught me what they were, what my strengths were, and all the rest of us as well. And what happened was, as a unit, we became more powerful at KOME than we were as individual talents. And we were the first station in the Bay Area to break a 2-share in San Francisco. I mean, we became a factor, and that's going against stations like KSAN. And that was all Michael. I mean, he like you said, cocky. No, Michael bullied, and he had great speeches. I mean, motivating talks we would have, and he believed in smart ass, not assholes. If I hear you on a soapbox, I'm going to knock you down. Mess with their minds, play with them, theater of the mind. Be one of them. Talk to them, not at them. Don't take it seriously because they don't. And if you bought into that, first off, you were going to grow, and secondly, you were going to have a really good time.
Yeah, I'm curious. Was he there the whole time you were there?
Yeah, pretty much. He took over, like I said, about 6 months after I got there, and he was. Although, whenever I finally left KOME, it was the beginning of the consultant era, right. And so things were starting to fall apart. And I was one of the first ones to leave. And I went on up to the Camel. I made the jump to Camel in San Francisco for 2 years. And right after I left there, the consultants and a couple of not good people that now run radio business took over, whose names don't need to be mentioned because they don't need to be given the credit. But they came in and destroyed everything, and they let Michael go because Michael was about. I'll give you an example. I was told before I was let go at KLOS the last time, it's no longer about the content. It's about the system.
Yeah, the theater of the mind stuff is totally gone now.
Michael was about
the image.
Michael was about content. I mean, he used to give us speeches about who gives a shit how technically correct your show is. Watch, and his greatest example was watch Johnny Carson every night, the monologue. He screws up the jokes. It's how you deal with the screw-ups that they love.
Right.
That's
actually a good example because Carson's funniest moments were when he screwed up.
Exactly. Well, it goes back to Steve Allen in the old days. I mean, it was all live. But the thing is, that's exactly right. He was about the content. Be one of them. They're human, too. They love when you screw up. They want to see how you're going to come out of it.
Yeah.
And if you freak out when you screw up, then you're out of here because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
It's like, accept the fact that you're going to screw up. Don't put yourself on such a high pedestal of perfection because that's pretty sterile shit. And the thing is, it got totally reversed. And like I said, I was told before I was let go, it's no longer about content. It's about the system now.
And that is so totally opposite of what FM radio originally was.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you're describing what AM radio was at the time.
Well, the way I attribute it to this, and like I said, it took me a while to get over. We talked about this before we started this show. And don't want to get into that, but because it took me a while to get over it and realize what the reality of the situation. But the truth of the matter is, we just did too good a job. And when you start doing too good, that's when business wants to get part of it.
Right.
And when business comes in, business will kill the garden to sell the flower.
Right. Analyze what works and then duplicate that throughout everything.
I mean, the problem is we did too good a job.
And you made it look easy.
Well, because we were having a damn fine time doing it.
All right, let's talk about your time at KLOS. You were hired by Tommy Hadges.
Yes, a gentleman. Tommy was a good guy. I kind of sandbagged him. He didn't, or I don't know if that's the proper phrase, but I kind of hedged my bet with Tommy. I was at Camel in San Francisco, and I had a good name in the Bay Area. I mean, I was there for 15 years, and I had a good name. And Camel, we had a really good time at Camel too. That was a great 2 years of my life. I mean, I still consider myself a San Francisco boy, but in those days, San Francisco was also the center of the rock and roll universe. There were so many great bands, and there was so much going on, and it was a great, great place to be in FM radio. And I had a lot of local friends. Like I got down in L.A., so with musicians, and one of those groups of friends I had was the Starship. Jefferson Starship. I mean, I knew them very well. I was very close to most of them. We used to go to the Starship House and everything, and they had just come out with the Freedom album. And it was kind of like a rock line kind of hookup, but it was on a different syndicator. And but it was going to be out of the Camel Studios, and it's just like Rockline was done down here with Bob Coburn when he used to do it down here, except it was going to be up there, and I was going to host it, and the Starship was going to be taking calls from all over the country, and so forth and so on. And certain people from around the country were flown in to be part of it, to also contribute. And one of them was Tommy Hadges from KLOS, who I had not met yet. Mm. And we met just before we went on the air and so forth, and we did the show. And, of course, it was carried on Camel, and it was live. And it was very spontaneous. We had a ball. And Tommy did not know that I was friends with the Starship, so there was like a lot of laughter and there was a lot of spontaneity, and they were very comfortable with me, and
gotcha.
I knew them, and a lot of repartee back and forth, and da 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 da. And Tommy seemed to be very impressed with that. I wasn't trying to impress him. I didn't know that Camel was going to be going under very soon, and I'd be looking for a job. But at that point, I was just dealing with friends on a national level. I was having a good time. And I guess that stuck in Tommy's mind. This guy really handled them well, man. It's like this guy on a national level. He's like, well, he didn't know. I knew, like I said, it wasn't like I'm interviewing a band I'd never met before.
Right.
And of course, a couple months later, when Camel went under, and changed formats, they did it while I was on vacation, and I came back to find out that you don't have a job anymore. It's so often happened in radio those days. But it was funny. I walked out of the meeting when they told us that Camel was like, "But you need to, get your resumes and air checks out because it's over. They're going top 40 and new company and all that kind of stuff." And I walked into I was a music director at that time also, and I went into my office, and my secretary handed me this note from Tommy Hadges in L.A. It was that fast.
Wow.
I picked up I called him and saying, he says, he says, "Baby, I hear you're getting a divorce." And I went, "Yeah, boy, the word gets out fast. I just found out 5 minutes ago." And he goes, "You looking to have an affair? You want to move? Want to move somewhere?" And next thing I know, he flew me to L.A. and I spent the morning talking with he and Bill Summers at KLOS about the possibility of taking over Afternoon Drive. And then when they were done with me, they tag teamed me for the people at Global Satellite, and I had dinner with them about taking over Power Cuts. And that night, I jumped back in the plane back to San Francisco going, "Wow, I think I'm leaving San Francisco. I think I'm moving."
KLOS, long career there.
Mm-hmm.
The longest of
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
Tell us some stories.
Yeah, right. I gotta go. I'll see you. Well, you gotta narrow it down. I mean, you're talking 15 years. What do you want to know?
Well, you hooked up during that period, if not before, with Joe Walsh. Joe was on your show a lot.
Okay, now you're getting down to it.
Jimmy Buffett. I mean, I can tell it.
Well, I've known Jimmy since 1976, 75.
I'm going to tell a Geno Michellini story.
Okay, go ahead.
See if he remembers.
Can you do it in a Geno voice?
No, I can't. Right. But there was one afternoon when Geno had Jimmy. Jimmy was on promoting one of his Verizon shows on the phone.
Oh, I know where this is going.
I actually heard it.
Yeah.
Something happened.
Yeah,
Jimmy got cut off. He doesn't want me to tell. You want me to forget this story? Yeah. That was the word that was being said.
I think I said it 4 times. Until Rita came in the studio and said, "Your microphone is open and you keep saying shit." Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing that up. I remember. Yeah.
I only bring it up because I actually heard it myself. I can verify it myself.
Hey, I did a lot of good work too.
Well, and
let's remember those moments.
Let's talk about probably the most monumental thing you ever did at KLOS, and that was to bring on board a feature that is still
my baby.
Still your baby, the 5 o'clock funnies.
My baby.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nothing's that funny. And again, maybe it is. All right, okay. There you go. I mentioned that we have Scooby Snacks for you today, and don't ask how I got this idea. I do not remember. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But we have more Scooby Snacks for you. Yes, from the archives. I had to dig deep for this one. Here's my old pal from the 5 o'clock funnies days on the radio. Here's the one, the only, Dr. Gonzo.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gonzo. If you've never seen me before, I'm not a real doctor. My dad just wanted a doctor in the family, so I call myself Dr. Gonzo to piss him off. I'm pretty sure my dad's friends still come up and go, "Oh, your son's a doctor." He's like, "Oh, yeah, Marcus Welby, MD. My son, the doctor."
It's a great example of what I was saying earlier in the first half of this interview about how things have, if you take care of business today, how things will fall together in ways you don't see coming. I'm a believer in that. I've lived most of my life that way, and to a great extent, it continues to do that even today. And the 5 o'clock funnies was one of those things that was. I wish I could say that I had this great plan for this thing that was going to take over the radio in L.A. and take credit for it, but I can't. It began with Tommy Hadges. Because the person that I took over for used to do a thing called the 5 o'clock party excuse, and she had a book. Linda McGinnis was her name. She's no longer with us, but it was each day she'd read off at 5 o'clock. There's a book of holidays around the world. I mean, just National Reindeer Milking Day, whatever. And Tommy goes, you can't really continue to do that. We got to do something at 5. He says, you should do a lot of comedy up in the Bay Area. Can you do anything on your show? Maybe play some comedy at 5 o'clock. I went, yeah, sure, I can do that. So I started playing a couple of minutes of like George Carlin or Monty Python or whatever comedy albums I had in the library, and so forth. And I did that for about a year, but I was running short on album cuts, on comedy cuts and so forth. And then I ran into an old buddy of mine from the Bay Area, a guy named Kevin Pollak. Kevin Pollak is a brilliant actor. You've seen him in many movies. One of his best roles was with the Nicholson flick, A Few Good Men. He played Rosenberg, the assistant lawyer to Tom Cruise. He was in The Usual Suspects. Brilliant actor, but even a more brilliant impressionist. And I knew Kevin when he was going to San Jose State, and he was starting out as a comic and an impressionist. And of course, we went our separate ways over the years and came back, and we connected down here. And he was appearing in town, a local comedy club, and he said, "How about I give you? Will you play my tape?" And I went, "Sure, okay, fine." And he, if you recall, one of the classic 5 o'clock funnies routines was his Star Trek impersonations.
Yes,
and that was Kevin Pollak, and with Bill Murray and all the different voices he did, and Nicholson and as Bones, and the phones went berserk. They went crazy when I played that bit. And of course, the comedy club sold out that night. Well, that was nice. I had one tape, but the thing is, Kevin was managed by a woman who was still a very, very dear friend and friend. We used to be partners. Now we're just good friends. Named Gail Stocker, and she managed comedians back then. And Kevin says, "You need to meet Gail." And I'm not sure, right? Because she had other comics. And so the night that I met her, we sat down and we were at a restaurant in Santa Monica, and she looked across at me and she had this look in her eye like a cat that's playing with its toys, because she has foresight. I don't. She saw, she knew, she realized. And she just looked at me. She said, "Where have you been all my life?" And I went, "Oh, no." I had no idea what she was talking about. But the thing is, at that particular time, she had a stable of young comics that she was trying to get exposure for. Not just Kevin Pollak, but Robert Wall.
Right.
Paula Poundstone. She was still with us then, Lotus Weinstock, Mac and Jamie, and the list goes on. Bill Engvall.
Sure.
And Bobby Slayton. She managed all when they were young comics, up and coming guys. And she said, "If I give you tapes of my comics, would you play them on your show?" I said, "This sounds like an interesting proposition." And next thing I know, Gail introduces me to Bud Friedman from the Improv, and Bob Fisher, the owner of the Ice House, Jan Smith, who had Igby's, Mike Lacey, who still owns Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa. And it's like, if we send you tapes, and next thing you know, and I adopted the three-legged milk stool policy, as in there's no money involved, but you will get free exposure. I get material nobody else gets, and the club will get asses and seats. We all win, as long as nobody tries to take it any further than that. And everybody was cool with it, with very few exceptions. And of course, once the tape started rolling in, then the funnies took over, and it became. Like I said, I wish I could take credit for it. It became a phenomenon. It became such a force that we found out that in the comedic world, for about 2 or 3 years there, right along the time that Tim Allen hit, when he took it to the higher level, because the 5 o'clock funnies is responsible for his exposure and for getting him to, which when he hit big, the funnies hit big. We both won. But in the comedic world, and I'm very proud of this, it became second only to being on Carson for comics in this town. Get on the 5 o'clock funnies. If you're in town, get on the 5 o'clock funnies. And it's like it grew on its own. It became a monster. I mean, it was a benevolent monster, but it became. I wish that you could say I had the foresight, but I didn't. Gail did. She saw it coming.
Of course, nowadays they don't do it that way. They're just playing album cuts again, right?
It's the same thing as it was before it all started. It's back to like we're talking about the system. It's not about magic. It's not about creativity. It's not about imagination. It's about cookie cutter, throw it out there, and this is, and the thing is I don't want that to sound like sour grapes or I'm like, harping about it. I'm past that.
No.
But it is what it is.
Sure.
The problem is that the audience does not know the difference, and I'm not putting down the audience. You only judge what you hear. It doesn't. You don't judge what you're not hearing, and very few people think, well, it's not creative enough.
They don't know what they're missing.
That's right, exactly.
A lot of the younger kids grew up on this radio. They never heard.
They don't know the difference, and that's in the various part as far as for people like myself, who we were challenged to take it to a higher level. Now there is no higher level. It's one level,
right? And
the audience, it's not, very few people in the audience go like, they're not being funny enough, not being creative enough. They're not playing enough variety. I mean, there are those who do it, but it's a very small percentage of the audience. So that's how they get away with it. Because the audience it's like TV. You judge what you see, not what you're not getting.
Right.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Tell me how that came about. You are going to be or have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? The radio?
There's a misunderstanding here. I have not been inducted. There's only two DJs inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as it should be, by the way. Because first off, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is international. Most DJs are local.
True.
And as much as I had the national show and so forth, but I'm known pretty much as a California boy. So it's like, there's no problem there. But of course, Alan Freed, created rock and roll, the name. He's out of Cleveland, so hence. Where is the Hall of Fame? But that's valid. It's total makes sense.
He's also interned there.
Yes, he is. And the other one is Tom Donahue, who created the FM rock and roll format. I mean, without Tom, I wouldn't have had a job. And they're the only inductees. I am part of a permanent exhibit called the 100 Most Influential DJs, and I'm.
Still pretty good.
I'm on a wall with people like B. Mitchell Reed and Wolfman Jack, which I can't put into words how that makes me feel. Beamer was one of my heroes. That's where I got my name from, and Wolf was my pal. I knew Wolf.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wolf was. I have stories, and no, they're good stories. They're good stories. Yeah. Wolfman Jack was. He was bigger than life. He was an amazing guy. If you had Wolf as a friend, you had a good friend. I mean, he was. If ever there was somebody who had license to be an egotistical asshole, it was Wolfman Jack, and he was not. Wolf. He was a big man, and Wolf was. He was humble. He was gentle. He was wonderful. He was funny. He was a good person to have as a friend, and to be on a wall with him. It's like I got no complaints about my life at this point. I'm still dealing with it. Dusty Street's responsible for it. Dusty, our queen from Flying Eye Radio Network, she decided. I don't know. She's quite a lady. I mean, like I say, I'm still learning about this lady. She decided that I needed to be on that wall. I mean, I didn't even know it existed.
Right.
She just decided on her own because, like I said, she knows these people. She works out of the studios or the Hall of Fame there. She knows Howard and all the people that run that place and everything. And I guess when Dusty speaks, people back there listen. And she started a crusade back there at the hall that I need to be there. Next thing I know, I got contacted by them, and I guess my picture's up now, and along with my biography, and they maybe send them an air check of some of my work that they have in a virtual thing there. I guess you can hear me back there, whenever you go there, something like that. But to say honor it's a surreal feeling. I mean, to get to this point in my career, to find out something like that I'm going to be there. It's going to be there after I'm gone, and the fact that it just tells me I made the right choices in my life. When I told you at the beginning of this interview that. It came to me and it pushed me in that direction, and I ended up doing that, not even knowing that this is what I was going to do. It tells me that George Harrison said, relax, float downstream, don't fight the current. And I just flowed this way my whole life. And to end up here, it's like I'm still dealing with that. It's only been a couple of weeks, and it's pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. I mean, in a life perspective, especially in the context of what we were talking about, Richard, as far as the way radio is today, and that people like me can't even get phone calls returned, and yet I'm in the Hall of Fame. It's like, it's one of those things that I can't dwell on too much because it's kind of overwhelming. It really is.
Any plans of going back to see yourself?
Yeah, I'm going back in October. I've been invited back to be part of. They're having a Masters tribute concert series or thing that it's part of their series that they do. I guess this one's with Chuck Berry, and Keith's going to be there, and a bunch of other people are going to perform. And I've been invited back for that. And get to see my picture on the wall.
That is pretty awesome, though.
It's blowing me away. I mean, like I say, this is not something I ever planned for, thought about. I mean, like I say, in the beginning it was about, hey, I love doing this. I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. And so now to be the point where at this point in my life where I'm on a wall somewhere.
Not just somewhere.
Yeah, well,
not just somewhere, Geno. Yeah. In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Say what you want about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's.
Hey, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's talk about what you're doing now.
Oh.
Because really, we've talked in retrospect and all of that, and almost
the
as
new
if,
adventure,
almost as if you're done, but you're far from done.
No.
You're far from done.
We're not done yet. No. It took me a while to realize that was over, and the thing that helped me get past it was the realization that I'm a spoiled brat, and I have been all my life because I'm a lazy son of a bitch, and it has to be something I flow into. It has to be something I want to do. I mean, work is a four-letter word to me, and radio was never work. It was just a joy. I couldn't wait to do it, and when they took that away from me, I went through even at my age, I went through like a couple of years of temper tantrum. I mean, I really did. I mean, I just did. I mean, I just receded and held my breath for 4 years and was stupid. I mean, I just was really stupid. But then I realized, a friend of mine got me out of it when he realized, he says, hey, you're whining about a business you don't want to work for anymore. It's not like you're being cut out of a good game. The game sucks and it's rigged. Why do you want to go back to that? And I realized, what's he saying? And of course, then because I relate my life to music, I kept coming back to George Harrison and All Things Must Pass. Hey, and you had a good run, but it wasn't going to last forever. Nothing does. Maybe it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but it's going to end, and it did. So move on. And at that point, because as I said a couple of times in this interview, when you take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself. I changed my attitude, and I started opening back up to the world and being the guy that I'm used to being, that I like living with. I started meeting some people, and they came to me out of nowhere. And one of them is a guy named Andy Goldfinger, and he's a fan of mine from the old days, but he's also a music fan, and he's a programmer, and he and his brother built their own site. And FlyingEyeRadioNetwork.com, and he did a little podcast. He used to work in college radio and so forth, and he's never done commercial radio, but he loves the business and he loves rock and roll, and he does it on his own. He does it for love, and he does his podcast, every week and so forth. He says, well, you want to do a show? I said, how do you do that? How do you do an internet show? Well, long story short, it took me a while, but I learned how, and now, for the last 2 years, I've been doing a show called Turntable Hits on the Flying Eye Radio Network, and it's basically an homage to the golden era of FM radio. I mean, it goes back to, I've come full circle to the days whenever I used to, program my own shows. When you'd when the playlist consisted of a blank sheet of paper and you started pulling albums a half an hour early. And sets and segues, and we do alternate cuts and live mixes and deep tracks, and of course I have the funnies. Now they're called the Flying Eye Funnies
because you can't use
that term.
What you invented.
I cannot use it. Although I have the library, all they have is the name.
You do have the library.
They tried to take the library because they're corporate, and that's what corporate does.
Sure,
but they didn't have a leg to stand on because how can I give them ownership of material that doesn't belong to me?
Oh, good point.
Belongs to the comics. I'm allowed to play it.
You're the caretaker.
Exactly. I have the rights to play it, but I don't own this material. I can't give you their material.
Wow.
And even the ABC lawyers went, I think he's got us on this one. so I took the library with me, and I have that. And of course, it's still growing too, because now that I'm back doing it again, I'm adding to it. But having a ball, I mean, it truly it's come back to the days at KOME whenever we mixed and played our own music and did whatever the hell we wanted to do. And we played new music because the old positioning thing about, the Uncola, that kind of stuff. It's so easy to program against FM radio today because they've done everything so badly, and it's so sterile that all we have to do is say, hey, sets are back. We play the full range. We play deep cuts. Remember live music? We do that. We have fun with it. It's like all the things that FM radio doesn't do anymore. It's like it's easy to counter program today. They've made it so easy because their pendulum has swung so far to the right now that we don't even have to try as far as just make sure that we do let them know, hey, this is what it's supposed to sound like. This is what it used to sound like. This is whenever it was magic.
So how and this is a problem we're facing with what we do out of this studio as well. So on the internet, there are literally thousands and thousands of voices and everything. So how do you get heard above all the voices?
Well, that comes back to the same thing that it always comes back to, money. And in our case, we don't have any. So Andy's been doing it for 5 years, and I've been with him for 2. And it's that old thing on the internet, that viral growth thing.
Right.
And also using, the social, like I use Facebook a lot and so forth, social media outlets and so forth to spread the word. And we show a steady growth. We have listeners all over the world, but it's been, we have no budget. And at this point.
Welcome to the no budget studio as well.
But the thing is, you have to have patience. I mean,
right.
and the beauty of this thing is it's not a business venture that we need to show a certain amount of profit to keep going because we're all doing it for love. So that removes that pressure. So the slow growth, I mean, I don't know how many listeners we've got. I get thousands. I mean, I don't know. I get input from Australia and New Zealand and Ireland and Afghanistan. I get Israel. I'm on Radio Luxembourg, in England, all over the country.
Which in itself is different than before,
completely.
right?
Yeah, completely.
Because now you have a worldwide audience, something you never dreamed of.
But I also have input from them. See, and the beauty of that is not only is the radio exposure in this country dead as far as what you hear on the air. If you listen to radio now in this country, you don't think there's any new bands at all. You think that it's completely dead.
No, that's what my son keeps saying. There's no good new music.
Wrong.
And he's only 10.
Wrong. Exactly. But that's the point. Exactly. They don't know the difference, so you can't blame them for that. It's true. The vehicle is gone. But I've always said, just because you take away the vehicle, you don't take away the fire. It's still there. And there are some really good new bands out there. But the thing is, with this internet situation, with the turntable hits, I'm getting input from around the world. I'm getting music from New Zealand. I'm getting music. I've got a half a dozen new bands from England that nobody in this country has heard of before, and they're really good bands. Wow. Things like that. And so that helps just expand the rainbow I keep talking about. You're playing the full rainbow of rock and roll colors and so forth. And so it's a different thing completely. It's a new reality that I'm still getting used to and learning how to use completely. But it's part of that new adventure. I mean, it's the beauty of it is just like I've said all along. You can't. If you listen to radio and you think, well, rock and roll's dead. No. There's still some really creative people out there writing music and recording it. And by the way, the record companies are just as screwed as the radio business is. And so they're learning how to do it on their own, and do their own labels, and do the selling through the internet. Right. I mean, this is the new medium. I mean, I've got so many artists that it's like, the hell with having a label. They just market straight through the internet.
Geno, I want to thank you so much for coming in and doing this LA radio sessions, and I hope you can come back again sometime and hang out with us.
Well, as long as you got beer.
We've got beer. We've always got beer. We might even have something a little harder next time you come by.
Is it 5 o'clock somewhere?
I think it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Good name for a song.
Well, anyway, thank you so much, Geno, for joining us, and appreciate it. And come back and see us again.
Thanks for having me.
Which brings us to that portion of the show where we will adjust your attitude. If you let us, it's that time. If you're listening at work, God love you. It's time to let her rip.
Hey, bud, let's party.